Hello, everyone, and welcome back into another weekly live stream here on Suns Digest. I'm your host, Bruce Veliz, and like King Nacho said, this is huge as we have a lot to discuss today. Maybe mainly not about the Phoenix Suns, but we will talk about the Phoenix Suns here as well as we break down on this latest episode here on Suns Digest. Like I mentioned, I'm Bruce Veliz. Appreciate you all being here. Sorry for the lack of live streams over these last couple weeks, the lack of uploads on the channel. As you guys know, it is kind of the dead part of the season. It is very dry with Phoenix Suns news out there in the space, just out like there is in the Valley itself. And unfortunately, with that being said, there not really being a lot of news. There hasn't been much to really talk about regarding the Phoenix Suns, right? Their roster is basically full. As we know, they do have one open roster spot, but Jared Butler is on that Exhibit 10 contract and is going to be competing with Jordan Goodwin to get that final roster spot. That one will be waived, and they will presumably hold one open for the potential of trades throughout the season. We haven't heard anything on the Jonathan Kuminga front for, it seems like weeks, months at this point. So it seems like the Suns have really shied away from that. And then any other moves regarding guys like Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, Nick Richards, the buzz has really seemingly quieted down on that front for the Suns. And at this point, there's just nothing really to break with any big news to talk about revolving around the team. So hence the lack of uploads. Obviously, in the last 24 to 48 hours, we have seen some stuff revolving the management side of things, where Matt Ishbia's name has now seemingly been under fire once again with some more lawsuits and stuff like that. But ultimately, in my opinion, I don't think that that's worthy of making a big video on to talk about, as it's not really respective of the team or anything that's happening there, and that's kind of just my stance. So with that being said, that's why there hasn't been much to upload, why you guys haven't seen me going live. I've also been kind of busier on the Thursdays, so unfortunately that has been the case. And Nacho's here saying shout out to my boys Salmon and Big Merc. Hopefully we do get to see them kind of pop by here in the chat here this afternoon, because unfortunately, King Nacho, which we'll get into just in a little bit, this will be the last time I will be on Suns Digest doing a live stream here, as with the Phoenix Suns kind of not really being in the news, I haven't been able to make videos or be able to discuss this over the last couple of weeks. But I will no longer be working with Digest Media coming at the end of this month, so just in the next couple of days, and that will mean that today is my final live stream on here. I do know that there will be some people trying to get coming on Suns Digest, so if you still want to stay with Digest Media, that is totally fine, and I totally understand why you guys would do that, and I'm still going to be in support for Digest Media, but I'm going to be focusing more on the writing side of things compared to YouTube. So I still will be doing Suns content, still staying in the Suns space over on Twitter, where you can find me at Bruce Veliz, or, at Bright Side of the Sun, where I currently do write, where I'll be having articles coming throughout the season. You obviously know I'm still on Suns Planet Pod with Jake and Kevin over there, so I'll still be talking and discussing Suns over on that space, but just every single day kind of just doing stuff like that. I will not be doing that regarding here on YouTube. I'll just be focusing doing that on writing, but that is where this case will be. But like I said, I still will be welcoming to, depending on who the next host is on the channel, to discussing and talking with them, maybe being a guest here and there to discuss some Phoenix Suns, or who knows, maybe you'll see me on some other shows down the line as well, appearing on as a guest. But like I said, this is going to be the last stream here. You might see, depending if any news comes out, a video here in the next couple of days, but if that is not the case, then this will be the last time we are speaking together on the Phoenix Suns here on Suns Digest. But just because that's the case doesn't mean that I'm going to be shying away from Digest Media. I'm still going to be supporting from the sidelines and wishing the best to the next creator that does take the reins over here, because we have done a fantastic job of building this community here over on YouTube over these last couple of months and years now at this point at 2.76K hitting here on YouTube. And I appreciate the love and support, King Nacho. Like I said, you can still get my work over on Bright Side of the Sun. I'll still be writing over there, and I'll still be doing Suns Planet Pod, so you'll still be catching me in some glimpses doing some Suns work. So I'm not going to be completely fading away. This is still my dream to do Suns media and to be more involved in these spaces. It just, at this point, I'm just not going to be doing YouTube and putting more time into the Suns writing space. And yes, I will be joining my boys CJ Pierre and Curtis Jones. Shout out to both CJ and Curtis. I hope they are doing very well. Haven't talked to either of them in a while, but I did have some interactions with them in the past, and that was absolutely fantastic, checking up on them and making sure they're doing great. Big Merc is here as well. What's up, Big Merc? How are you doing today? Glad you get to join us. But now that we've gotten over that with the last, 6 to 7 minutes talking about what is going to be going on for the future, like I said, you will see, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, a new face here on Suns Digest to lead you that way, and I'll be supporting with that. But like I said, let's talk about the Phoenix Suns and what we can talk about, which is questions that you guys have for the Phoenix Suns. If there's anything that you guys would like to know about the Suns, fire it away, and we could talk about some of the main components of the Suns that are going to be mainstays. As the title of this is, This Will Define Everything, and defining everything is what Devin Booker is going to have to do. As I've seen a lot of discussion over the last couple of days and weeks talking about Devin Booker and how successful he needs to be for the Phoenix Suns this year. Does he need to be that number one guy? Can he have a little bit more of an offensive assisting focus season? Does he need to be more of that dominant scorer for this Suns team? What is kind of those two paths for Devin Booker to really thrive to be the best player for the Phoenix Suns? And I think that's going to be one of the big talking points kind of going into the season. Personally, we have heard Jalen Green's going to be playing the point guard. Don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case. I think he's going to be more attacking downhill and being more an off-ball guy, where Booker will be the person that is going to be that main focus point controlling that offense. So I do think we will see Booker shine a little bit more with a playmaking role and maybe being a little bit more ball dominant. But I am excited to see what the Phoenix Suns do kind of look into next season, with kind of all of that coming into play. One of the players that I'm still really high on, that I can't wait to kind of really see break out, because I haven't really heard much about the Suns over these last couple weeks with, just training camp videos or just anything like that. I'm really excited to see what a guy in Oso Ighodaro is going to do after that fantastic summer league where he was running point forward, hitting some big time shots, and being one of the main focal points, not on the offensive end, but defensive end for this Phoenix Suns team. I think he is going to take a big leap going into this season. And I think that's someone to keep an eye out. Big Mercs believing in Fleming to ball out. And Fleming would be very fun to watch too. Obviously, as a Suns fan, this is if there's any pick that you want to see ball out rookie year, it's got to be Rasheer Fleming, because the Suns packaged 4 or 5 second round picks to move up to then not only get Fleming, but they use some of those from the Kevin Durant trade as well. I feel like a guy in Fleming has to be getting that run, has to be getting that opportunity. And that's the tough part where it comes to the Phoenix Suns, because in that wing room, they have a lot of wing guys, but kind of some tweener wings. They have Ryan Dunn, Dylan Brooks, primarily more some small forwards, can play the power forward. But then you got Rasheer Fleming. You also have Nigel Hayes-Davis, who can kind of play that power forward. And then you also have guys that can play into the double big lineups, right? You have Nick Richards, you have Malawach, Mark Williams, and Oso Ighodaro, mainly centers. But I would argue that Oso Ighodaro and Malawach could probably play the 4 in some aspects for the Phoenix Suns. So if they want to run some of those double big lineups, then that could be a case where we could see some of those opportunities really grow for those guys. And maybe a guy like Hayes-Davis or maybe even Rasheer Fleming kind of falls out. Personally, for me, if you're the Suns, you're kind of embracing youth movement and kind of embracing building up these rookies. I would expect to see them get a little bit more of a light. So I think Fleming, in my opinion, is going to be ahead of Nigel Hayes-Davis probably on the depth chart, where maybe if the Suns lean into the season a little bit more going veteran focused. If they do lose some games, kind of buy into Fleming a little bit more. Maybe that's the case. But I do think by the end of the season, Fleming will have a more predominant role than Hayes Davis if he does really shine and there's no injuries that really come into play. They saw something special in Fleming to make those moves up. And a lot of teams, I think, kind of did. He was someone at St. Joe's that I know from covering the Celtics as well that they had some interest in, and a lot of the teams around that area in the late 20s really like Rasheer Fleming. So him falling to pick 31 was a big just plus for the Suns. And like you said, Big Merc, they obviously saw something special, or they really desired something in him, because they didn't use all those picks to get up. And Man, I forgot about Man, Kaman Malawatch. That's the nickname for him. Will probably have a steep learning curve, slow growth potential in my opinion. And that's the thing too as well. We all know that Man hasn't really played basketball for a long time, right? He seemingly started picking up basketball when he grew out of soccer cleats, right? When he started getting too tall, getting too big. And I think he is going to be someone that's going to be very slow, gradually getting better through these first couple of years. I think maybe his rookie season, he might be the worst out of the rookies, but he's going to show that potential to continue to get better. And then I think he's going to be overall the best product out of all of them, where he has the potential to be the best out of the three. But maybe this rookie season, we don't see him be that number one guy. We see other guys look a little bit better because they have those NBA skill sets that are easier to translate. They have the body, the size, the frame. Obviously for bigs, it takes a little bit longer for them to develop. And depending on who he's playing with as that ball handler, we saw some struggles with that obviously in the summer league. That's really going to dictate where I think a guy in Kaman Malawatch is going to thrive on the court. You also said King Nacho, he played an injured summer league. Fleming going to ball out in the regular season. That's the thing. He was also injured to start off the summer league, dealing with that foot injury. He then comes in, looks pretty solid. I believe in that fifth game as well was the only player that did play. So it was just like a big Rasheer Fleming game or something like that, or maybe I'm wrong. But give him 3 years to blossom. That's my rule with bigs as well, especially kind of project bigs and just anyone in the NBA is you have to give them 3 years to really see what they can pan out to be. So with Malawatch, I think we'll continue to see him get better each season. I think next year we're going to see him be like, all right, yeah, we see the potential. We see a guy that can be a solid big for us. And then after year 1 into year 2, we're going to see, all right, yep, this is the guy that we saw envisioning drafting. Just needs to polish up these little extra side pieces of his game, and he can be a top 5 to top 8 big in the league. And then coming into year 3, we're going to see that complete dominance, that complete turnaround where Man is just going to be ballistic for the Phoenix Suns. And that's what I want to see. And then going back to Nacho once again, when talking about Rasheer Fleming, once again, it kind of depends on what role he plays. I think he'll kind of play that 3-4 for the Phoenix Suns, kind of that bench wing. And he has a pretty decent three-point shot, so if he can be a solid three-point shooter out there on the wing for this bench unit, I think that gives him even more value, especially because he's on a rookie scale contract and the Suns see the value of him. Not only are they going to be intrigued to give him more minutes to try to see the untapped potential, to try to develop him more, to make him a more consistent role player faster and better for this Phoenix Suns team, but it's also going to have them looking at their roster and looking at other guys who specialize in, and particularly dominant three-point shooting guys in Royce O'Neal or Grayson Allen, and kind of being like, okay, because we have a dominant rookie on this contract that's playing so well, we want to make sure he gets those minutes. So maybe selling on Royce O'Neal for a couple second round picks just because we couldn't get a first is something we're willing to take, or trading Grayson Allen for a couple second round picks, or maybe just some salary filler just to cut some salary so we have the option to extend a guy in Rasheer Fleming in 2 to 3 years down the line, so we're not salary tied up now with their long-term money on the books, long-term money being on the books. Then that could be a case I can see for the Suns as well, kind of coming into those plays. It all depends on how a guy or Rasheer Fleming really does dominate, because I think him, Royce O'Neal, and Nigel Hayes-Davis are kind of competing for, those kind of that 3-and-D scoring shooting wing for this Suns team. And I think ultimately by the trade deadline, the Suns are going to have 2 of them on the roster, and it's really going to depend on which one really does stand out. Nigel Hayes-Davis, coming from the Turkish League, being an EuroLeague MVP, could be someone that really stands out, could, hit the mark and be NBA ready. Or he could be someone that comes in and just doesn't look like he can stand up there with the Phoenix Suns. And if that's going to be the case, then maybe they do keep Royce O'Neal for some of that depth if Rasheer Fleming still needs a little bit extra being a rookie. But if a guy Nigel Hayes-Davis looks to be one of those rehab projects that's kind of bouncing back, really finding his groove and stepping up, and Rasheer Fleming is having a fantastic rookie season, then a guy in Royce O'Neal could then present to be the odd man out, being on, the $9 million contract that he is owed, where comparatively the two guys combined, Rasheer Fleming and Nigel Hayes-Davis, would representatively make around half of what a player in Royce O'Neal would be making. It makes it a little bit easier of a decision for the Phoenix Suns to realize we can keep both of these guys who make half of what Royce O'Neal makes this season and not evenly adding on what he makes for future seasons, while also being able to maybe add another point guard because maybe we had some injuries, or maybe add some center depth because we traded away two of our centers because they weren't really fitting our system. That's something that is always to analyze with the Phoenix Suns in this year. And then Big Mark Brea to be Booker 2.0. I won't make that jump so far immediately, but as someone that is a big Kentucky fan and has watched Kobe Bryant in the tournament and who has advised people multiple times to go back and watch his tournament games in his season before he was drafted, I absolutely love this pick. When the Suns were projected to draft, I believe it was Tyrese Proctor. I was also very high on that because I liked the ability to have a playmaking guard and someone that could work alongside Devin Booker. But a guy in Kobe Bryant is the best shooter in this draft class, like Brian Gregory said, and I absolutely believe that. He's absolutely electric from three-point range, and I think is even a better shooter, three-point shooter coming out of college than Devin Booker. And I don't necessarily know if he's Booker 2.0. I kind of said he's more like a Grayson Allen light, in my opinion, where he can play the 2-3, and he's just that, guy that is ready and rapid to just unleash shots right away, just fluid motion, catch and shoot, creating his own shot, being able to get them off at a fast release time. And I think that maybe we can see Brea kind of fit in to be that dominant three-point sniper that can replace that with Grayson Allen. Because once again, the Suns have these younger value guys in Rasheer Fleming and Kobe Brea. And even though Brea's on a two-way contract, I'm not saying he's going to take this leap this year. Maybe by the end of this year, if they look like they can be representable rotational pieces for the Phoenix Suns, then they don't need to be paying $27 million to guys that basically do the same thing and just having extra depth pieces. They'd rather play their younger guys, play their rookies, at least let them develop, and then move off of these contracts to fill in another void or another need that could really help benefit your team to then keep you still making good progressions and trying to be stacking up towards the top in the Western Conference. Because like Matt Ishbia has said, this team is not trying to tank. It's not trying to be bad. It's trying to win. And I'm not going to say that they are going to win. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. In our last stream, I believe we went over where I think the Suns could really fall into line in the Western Conference. And I had them not even in the play-in. And unfortunately, with this kind of stacking of the Western Conference, that's how I truly do feel about this team. It's not that that's a bad thing, because I think they're going to be more exciting than last year, because obviously, going into last year, the expectations were so high. They were expected to be a top 4 or top 5 seed, and then they fall out of the play-in and are completely destroyed, and Bradley Beal's bench. Now they don't have that Bradley Beal headache. They don't have the Kevin Durant trade saga that was looming over the second half of the year. Respectfully, best of luck to Kevin Durant and to Bradley Beal, to both parties. I wish them nothing but the best over in Houston and over in LA, and I think it's going to be very interesting. I think they're both better fits on the teams, especially at the ages that they are in their career at this moment, to be those complementary pieces, or 1A or 1B pieces for those teams in their respective their groupings, and I'm wishing nothing but the best of luck for them. But for the Phoenix Suns, I think getting this younger core around Devin Booker is good to kind of really set on track what this team is going to be heading to soon. Obviously, don't strip it down. Obviously, don't sell away from building around Devin Booker, because you have the flexibility in the next couple of seasons to be able to make these moves, or have these players like Kaman Malawach, Rasheer Fleming, Kobe Brea, etc., to really rise and be those dominant pieces for you down the line, to where You don't have to make the trades for Bradley Beal or Kevin Durant and give up all your draft capital, right? You can keep that draft capital and use it with other smaller moves around. Maybe if you sign a bad contract, or if you want to get an upgrade at a specific depth position from a specific team, to go out there and bolster your squad to make that push in the West. And I think we're going to see that with the Suns in 2 to 3 seasons. Obviously, it's not going to be this year. I really don't think next year as well they're going to be that top tier team in the West. Maybe next year they're middling around that play-in area, or early play-in, low 7-8 area. But then after that, that's when you can expect, I think, in 3 years for them to be kind of back into that. The Suns look like they could be 5th, 4th in the Western Conference, and then once they're in those discussions, that's when they can maybe take that next swing and maybe even overcome those expectations and low expectations that people have to being a top 3 team. So sad to see Bol go, but I understand he has no place on this team. Also, did you see Frank Kaminsky's playing overseas, and Damian Lee is going overseas as well? I did not see, unfortunately, that Damian Lee is going overseas. Frank Kaminsky going overseas makes sense because he didn't really have a role in the NBA last year. And for Damian Lee, it also kind of makes sense. Unfortunately for Damian Lee, that injury that he suffered, the torn meniscus, or I believe, or torn ACL, MCL, just really, really did a number for him. And I feel bad for him. I know that he seemingly said that he could have played more this season, so I don't really want to put the blame on him. We all know the whole coaching disaster and debacle that happened with the Phoenix Suns this year, so I'm not going to say it's fully on Damian Lee, but with him getting obviously a little bit older, coming off of injuries, not really being especially gifted the opportunity to play in the NBA, specifically with how seemingly there's not a lot of roster spots open now because the new CBA, you can't overplay players. Teams are scared; they don't want to have to, buy out these contracts. Even like the Suns and the Rock, the Blazers and the Bucks had to do with Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, DeAndre, and all that jazz. They don't want to do that, so it is tough for those kind of older players or guys that are kind of like tweener rotation guys. It seemingly does look like they're gonna have to go overseas. Bol, he might have to go overseas too. I know you're a big Bol guy, Big Merc, and I'm sad to see him go too. I know people in the Valley really, really love to see him play, but like you mentioned, it just doesn't seem like there's a role for this team. I think, especially now with Mark Williams and Maluach on the roster with Nick Richards, Oso Ighodaro, there's just no room for another big man in that rotation, and it's kind of tough. I wish we could have seen Bol really find his place somewhere else across the league, because I still believe in the untapped potential with Bol. We did see it come through in games throughout this season, specifically when KD went down and the Suns were giving him some big-time run into that starting lineup. Obviously, there are some defensive problems with Bol out there on the court, but offensively, if he's in that rhythm and in a pretty solid defensive bench lineup, I think he could be a pretty solid scorer for you from the three-point line, even if he is viewed as, a 12th or 13th man and just uses an extra additional depth piece just in some sporadic instances where you need some good three-point shooting. They have some weak perimeter offenders. Throw in a guy like Bol, if he can get hot for you for that game, score you a quick 12 points in a 5-minute succession, then that's a great run for you to be on and just gives Bol some more motivation. I would love to see that, but fortunately, that doesn't look like it's going to be the key. But we'll have to see what happens to the other former Suns. I know Tyus Jones went to the Orlando Magic. Mason Plumlee went to the Charlotte Hornets as of this moment, but they know they're over the roster limit, so we'll have to see if he does make that final roster. There are a lot of people that are still available out there in free agency. Apparently some players that are not going to be getting contracts, but we'll have to keep our eyes out on that because training camp is, I believe, a little over a month away, and we're almost 2 months away, less than 2 months away from the start of the NBA season. So it's going to be a great time gearing up for the Phoenix Suns start of the year. Unfortunately, like I said earlier in the stream, I will not be doing that here on Suns Digest, as this is my final stream, my final takeaway with you guys here, and it's been an absolute blast. I appreciate everyone that has showed their love and support. We started this channel after I had been doing Celtics Digest with Digest Media for a little bit. Obviously, had been a Suns fan as well. And when I saw it pop up on the website, I messaged my boss and said, hey, I work for the Phoenix Suns. They're my second favorite team, obviously. I'm a big fan of them, and I think I could do a good job talking about the team. And I think you guys have proved that I can clearly do that, as you have helped me so much just in this Phoenix Suns space. Obviously, starting off here, but then by doing this and having this kind of experience, being able to bolster into doing these live streams and have wonderful guests on here on Suns Digest. Like I mentioned, I've been able to talk to Ben Garcia from obviously the Locked On Show, Brendan Clean, who was formerly on the Locked On Show. I've gotten to talk to John Voita from obviously Bright Side of the Sun and obviously the Suns Jam podcast. I've been able to have all these great discussions with all these, Eric Ruby from PHNX Suns as well. All these great discussions with all these great creators over here on Suns Digest. And you guys have been the big help with all of that, right? Being able to tune in, show your support, prove to these people that I know what I'm able to talk about. And I really do appreciate all that love that you guys have been giving. Like I said, just because I'm leaving Digest Media and Suns Digest doesn't mean that Suns Digest is going to completely go away. I'm sure that there's going to be another creator coming on here who's going to do an absolute fantastic job talking about your beloved Phoenix Suns, and I'll be showing my support. So if you see me in the comment section, or maybe even see me as a guest on the live stream, you might see my face on here again. But if not, you can check out my work over still at Bright Side of the Sun, as going into this year I still will be writing. That is the main reason why I'm leaving Digest Media, to focus on that writing bit. So I'll be doing that. You guys can check me out over there. You can still check me out on Suns Planet Pod over on Saturdays. We'll be getting that started up soon with Jake and Kevin. And I really do appreciate all the love that you guys have really given. Shout out to everyone that has been here for the streams. King Nacho, Big Merc. I know Phoenix Suns #1 fan also used to come into these streams. I don't necessarily know where he is, but we'll definitely have to let him know. Mark Priger as well. I really do appreciate these kind words that you guys are giving me on this final stream. It really has meant a lot being able to talk to you, discuss, and ultimately get this channel to where it's been, right? 2.76K. Not only just that, but just the connections that I've been able to make by having this YouTube channel have been absolutely fantastic. And like I said, hopefully this is just the beginning of great things coming, and we will be launching into some Suns media spaces, doing some great things over there. And with you guys showing that support, we can obviously continue to do that. So thank you guys once again so much. I really do appreciate all the love here on the channel, and best of luck to the Phoenix Suns these next couple of weeks, as it's going to be interesting gearing up to this season. But as you know, you can still catch my work. You can still hear my words on the Suns going into this year. But for the final time, have a great rest of your night, and go to Phoenix Suns.